the Everything But Politics podcast.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to this 132nd edition of the Everything But Politics podcast. Joining us here this Masters week is a man you're going to be seeing on your TV all week. Veteran journalist, wine connoisseur, and Golf Channel's very own Damon Hack. Damon, thank you for joining us, my friend. It's good to see you.
Great to be with you guys, the bros. It's an exciting week in my business, and if you love sports and love golf, it's an exciting week for everybody.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And there's a lot of Masters talk to get into here. But before that, you just got back from Mexico covering the NFL PA Classic. How was that experience?
It was awesome. You know, I used to cover the NFL back when I was a sports writer. I covered the San Francisco 49ers for the Sacramento Bee in the late 90s, covering Jerry Rice and Steve Young. And then I covered the NFL for the New York Times and Sports Illustrated. So it was neat to be back with football players. And I was working with Kay Adams and Dan Orlovsky, Jameis Winston, who's still an active player. He just got signed by the New York Football Giants.
Yes.
And it was neat to see these guys out there at Mayakoba over 2 days, grinding over putts, talking some trash, and they absolutely love golf. And it was really cool. I got to interview Sauce Gardner, did a walk and talk interview with him, the Jets Defensive Rookie of the Year from 2022, who's now like one of the veteran leaders of the defense, and talking golf with him, talking Jets and how excited he is with Aaron Glenn, the new football coach of the Jets. So it's just neat, kind of my worlds colliding, former NFL writer covering a golf event of football players was very, very enjoyable.
No doubt. Were there any golfers that really surprised you out there?
You know what? J.J. McCarthy, the Vikings quarterback, was an absolute stick. Adam Thielen, the former Vikings receiver, now with the Panthers, has a really good swing, plays a lot of golf. Von Miller, who's like a big linebacker, actually has a pretty smooth move as well. So there weren't a lot of guys out there scuffling. I mean, they hit a few, wayward shots. They hit the ball a long way. Like Sauce hits his 5 with like 250 yards, which is pretty darn good for someone who's been playing golf for about a year. But it just speaks to the athleticism, the quick twitch, and strength that these guys have.
That's amazing. So, let's go back to your journalism career. You're a California kid, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Correct.
California, UCLA to Cal Berkeley Journalism School?
Exactly. I was a history major at UCLA, grew up loving sports broadcast, and there were some great play-by-play voices when I was a kid. Vin Scully calling Dodger games, Chick Hearn calling Laker games. So I was always surrounded by sports. The Dodgers were winning World Series, 81, 88. The Lakers were winning NBA titles, 80, 82. They won in 85, 87, 88. So Raider fan with Bo Jackson, Marcus Allen. So it was neat being a kid in LA and surrounded by great sports, but also great broadcasters. So I grew up loving sports, watching sports, pretending I was a broadcaster. And then after going to college and was a history major, ended up going to Cal Berkeley for their 2-year master's program, got an MJ in journalism. And then from there did sports writing internships at the Sacramento Bee. I did a business and features writing internship at the Fresno Bee, worked at the Oakland Tribune, on campus at Cal, worked for the Daily Californian covering UC Berkeley baseball. So I was just always immersed in sports talk, sports writing, and kind of worked my way up from there. But you're still a California sports fan, love the Lakers, love the Dodgers, and even though the Raiders moved to Vegas, still love my Raiders.
And now, what in your household, as a young man, as a young boy even, were you guys taught you can do whatever you want in life as long as you work hard? Or what was the upbringing like in the Hack household?
Yeah. Both my parents, college educated, father an attorney, mom a marriage, family, and child counselor, psychotherapist, both with degrees themselves. So when I grew up, I always knew I was going to college. It wasn't even a question of if, it was a question of where. My mom graduated from Berkeley, my dad from UCLA, and pretty cool to say I have a degree from both the schools that my parents went to. So yeah, education was always at the forefront. We had the LA Times delivered to our house every morning. I was reading the sports page, the agate page, pretty soon after I could walk.
Hmm.
My parents always tell me like how amazing it was to see me kind of pouring through the stats and the scores. So it really came to my love of sports and numbers and journalism and broadcast, honestly. But yeah, as far as like the upbringing, schoolwork, education was a given. My little sister went to Stanford, and is even smarter than I am, and like I didn't get into Stanford, so it's still kind of a tough talking point for me. But I also like bragging on her. So
Yeah.
yeah, we were a Pac-10, Pac-12 back then. Pac-10 and Pac-8 when my parents were going there.
Wow.
Upbringing, but yeah, schoolwork, hard work was always at the forefront, and that was kind of the way we were raised.
Love
Awesome.
that.
So what do you think has changed more since you started, the sports industry or journalism?
Wow, interesting question. I would say I think the journalism industry has changed more rapidly. I mean, I think that the salaries that athletes are making, I mean, they've always been pretty handsomely paid, but there was a
Hmm.
time when they were maybe more commensurate with other, works of life, jobs, employment, and now there's just astronomical salaries. But to
Hmm.
me, people consume sports so differently. I mean, who reads a newspaper
Yeah.
anymore? I grew up with newspapers. When I went to grad school, I subscribed to the New York Times. It would arrive at my house at night, like the West Coast edition would arrive the night before, so like 11:30, 11 o'clock, I'd hear it, and I would run out of my apartment in Berkeley and read it, basically the news that was coming out the next day. And now
Hmm.
everybody's got news available on their phones. They don't read long form magazine pieces as much. It's a tweet more likely, or a TikTok, or an
Yep.
Instagram reel or post. So people don't probably have the bandwidth. Everybody's so busy to sit down for like a 45 minutes and actually read an article. Influencers are all the rage. You don't have to have the traditional kind of bachelor's degree,
Yep.
master's degree, send out, newspaper clippings of your work from college or reels from your college. I mean, it's just different. If you have a computer and you have some gumption and some elbow grease and maybe think outside the box, maybe you're a little bombastic, you might find a place in this business. So I definitely came up in the more traditional way. You kind of work your way up. And I think it's just a different era, different time, and place. People still love
Mm.
sports, but
Yep.
they do it differently. Streaming, you missed the Laker game last night. You can watch a 2-minute highlight, 5-minute highlight on YouTube to get you caught up from what happened last night, as opposed to reading a beat writer's article as you might 20, 30 years ago.
You
Yep.
got it.
Fair
What
point.
do you envision the future of AI with the future of journalism, excuse me, with the rise of AI?
Yeah, it's amazing that you can type in a couple of phrases. I'm working on an essay on X or working on a story on Y, and
Hmm.
an AI can actually write that for you. I grew up, and especially when I was in graduate school, really gravitating to wonderful writing, sports writers like Jim Murray of the LA Times, or Frank DeFord, who wrote for Sports Illustrated, and reading some of the giants. Rick Riley used to have the back page column for Sports Illustrated, and Gary Smith was an incredible feature writer, long form for Sports Illustrated, and just kind of really appreciating the written word. And I covered 2 Super Bowls for Sports Illustrated where I was the guy writing the cover story. I had the Steelers and the Cardinals. It was Ben Roethlisberger versus
Yep.
Kurt Warner, and then I had the Giants' second time meeting the Patriots when it
Wow.
was Eli Manning against Tom Brady in Indianapolis, kind of the rematch that the Giants won again after beating them when they were the undefeated Pats. And grinding over every word, staying up all night, watching the Super Bowl, being in Indianapolis, and having to go back to the hotel room after going to the Giants party and figuring out, how do I encapsulate what everybody, not just in the country, but around the world, saw? How do I take them inside the locker room? How do I take them inside that week's practice? What was the theme of the season for the New York Football Giants? And then telling that story in a 3,000 word way that differentiates from the newspaper articles that are coming out the next day, when my magazine stories are going to come out till Wednesday or Thursday following the Super Bowl. So I just think that it's a different era. It's a different time. But man, I love the written word. I would not want an AI bot writing a story for me, even though I know it's easier. You can get your dissertation done maybe easier. I don't know how a professor would know, did you write this? Did
Mm.
the AI bot write that? I know how hard writing is. I know what it's like to have to write a story at 4:30 in the morning when you have an 8:30 a.m. deadline. Like those types of pressures. I think, if you're a writer, if you're a communicator, if you're a journalist, that kind of puts the pelts on the wall for you, gives you confidence to know the written word, to be able to tell a story in a compelling way. I hope those skill sets aren't lost as the technology continues to grow and we're able to get things done quicker, easier, more efficiently.
And given the era we are in, what do you say to aspiring journalists?
I think you have to be versatile. I think you have to become an expert in your field, read everything, read what came before you, and also be cognizant of what's going on as well. Are there things that intersect with your line of work? If you're covering golf, for example, well, you may have to start learning about United States and Middle East politics because of Live Golf and the Public
Mm-mm.
Investment Fund and different things. Don't be stagnant. Always try to improve. And I'm reading all the bios of the players. What coaches can I call ahead of time? Maybe a player put a different club in the bag specifically to attack the par fives at Augusta.
Mm.
Expert in your field. Work hard, be an information person. If you're a beat writer, be an information person for the players, for the coaches. Be someone that people want to come to for information. I think that's also of vital importance as well.
And speaking of the Masters, what does your prep look like going into it?
If it's interesting, I spend like months ahead of time. I keep notes from the previous masters and start sifting through them, February, January, March. Okay, reminding myself, okay, how many par fives? How long is Magnolia Lane? What are some of the traditions? Jack won six, Tiger won five. Wait, what year did Phil Mickelson win his first? Oh, that was 2004. Then he won again in '06 and 2010. How many strokes did Tiger win by in '97? 12. Who did he beat in '01 when he won the Tiger Slam? Who was in contention? Oh, it was Duval and it was Phil. That stuff has to be second knowledge, secondhand, right off the tongue, ready for when you're on camera, just because you never know what could happen. Maybe you have to vamp on something. Maybe you have to talk about the azaleas and the dogwood, and the flowering plants of Augusta, the Eisenhower tree. I mean, whatever it is, you have to be able to talk about the Masters as if it's your second language, as if it's your
Hmm.
first language. So I spend months reading old stories, getting excited, watching old YouTubes of the Masters just to remind myself of the grandeur, the importance for the golf fan, it's their Super Bowl. And
Yes.
for
Yeah.
the players, it is as well. So I want to be as excited, as pumped up as the fan, the family watching at home. So I want to be ready. It's the biggest week of our year, and there's just nothing like that first major championship of the season.
Totally agree. And Damon, when I did the intro, I mentioned we're going to be seeing you on TV all week, which we know, which is great. When you go back 20, 25 years and you're up at 4:30 a.m. writing and you have the 8 a.m. deadline and you're writing journalism, what when did TV enter the picture and you found yourself, all right, ready, three, two, one, and we're live? When did that pivot in your career begin?
Yeah, good question, Merrick. I started dabbling in television, I'd say, when I was at Sports Illustrated, and I'd be going to these events, and people started coming to me, for example, at a Players Championship. I remember Rich Lerner, who's still at Golf Channel, one of the great broadcasters
Yes.
there, was like, "Hey, Damon, Tiger just won." It might have been who knows? He might have won a tournament at Bay Hill, or he might have won a tournament somewhere. And they would say, Damon, can you give us 30 seconds, your perspective on this historical situation? And I was living in New York City and writing for Sports Illustrated, and you had like SNY, the sports New York cable station that would talk Mets and talk Jets, and I had done football, and someone reached out. I got an agent because I was starting to just dabble in TV, where they were like, "Well, Damon, you're right. You're at all this football game. You're at this. Give us a 30-second sound bite." So that's how it started, really. I was completely on the ball writing. I was a writer, newspaper writer, magazine writer, feature writer, profile writer. And then I started to just dabble. I started to get called. We need an expert to talk about this. And then I got an agent, and my agent's like, okay, let's put some feelers out. At that point, already the writing world was changing a little bit. The advertising space was shrinking in newspapers and magazines. The SI, which had been this robust magazine, was getting smaller. They started offering buyouts during my latter years at Sports Illustrated. I was there till 2012, in '09, and then again in late 2011, early 2012, they offered buyouts. At the same time they were offering a buyout in 2012, I had just covered the US Open, and there was two great managers at Golf Channel, Molly Solomon and Jeff Russell, and they're married. And Jeff was the editor at Golf World, and I'd seen my writing before, and I knew Jeff a little bit through people. And they were like, "Damon, we're trying to grow the roster at Golf Channel. We're relaunching Morning Drive. Why don't you come out for a tryout?" I was like, okay. So I covered the U.S. Open at San Francisco's Olympic Club, flew from San Francisco to Orlando in 2012, sat across from Gary Williams from Tuesday to Friday on that morning show. And then at the end of the week, got an offer to work at Golf Channel full time. I was already offered a buyout at Sports Illustrated, as were a bunch of senior writers. I accepted it. I could almost see the writing on the wall. I just knew that the heyday of sports writing was ending, not spending as much money, not sending as many writers to these events, and just kind of a consolidating, shrinking news hole, as it were, writing space. So it was good time for me, fortuitous, to start to do it. I felt comfortable for some reason, like right away. Was never worried about the red light. Felt like I was just having a conversation with Gary, talking about whatever it was. Webb Simpson winning the U.S. Open, Jim Furyk coming up short, Graham McDowell, who had already won a U.S. Open in 2010 at Pebble, nearly winning a second one. So it was neat, just kind of taking what I already knew and finding comfort in talking about it on the air. So it was quickly apparent to me this was a good fit. Comfortable on the air. Loved kind of having some repartee back and forth with Gary Williams. And then we had a larger cast, Charlie Reimer at the time. You had Holly Saunders there. Later, Paige McKenzie, Lauren Thompson, Robert Dameron. The coach, Jonathan Coachman, came aboard for a bit. Eamon Lynch would pop on from time to time. Jaime Diaz, lots of great journalists and giants in the game. And a lot of people from the writing world were starting to shift into television. And that's kind of the path that I followed as well.
What are some misconceptions about being on TV from your end, and then what we see from our physical televisions?
Yeah, I'll tell you, I was one of those writers that thought TV folks were just like stealing all our stuff and, not very traditional journalists. They were more like just the talking heads, and, oh, how easy must it be to, read a story that I wrote in the New York Times and then take a couple of lines and then make it into a, 35, 45-second soundbite for Golf Central or for the news in general. The just thought was that the writers were the true journalists and the TV guys were all the talking heads that got to put on a suit and look good. But what do they really know about journalism? How hard could it be? And then, even though I felt comfortable on TV and loved it from the start, it's one thing to be an analyst and like kind of play off of the main host. Then I became a main host, and all of a sudden I've got the IFB in my ear, and there's a producer talking to me 5, 4, 3, 2, and I'm having to like come out of commercial and bring the show back or throw to commercial. After a robust conversation, I got to say, coming up next, we'll be joined by Nick Faldo, 6-time major champ, 3 Open championships and 3 Masters tournaments. He joins us after the break, and like being able to talk while someone's counting that down in my ear, and there's like people on set moving around behind the scenes, like wait a second, this is a little more difficult than I thought it was, being able to hold a conversation while someone's talking. So that was my main misconception, was that it was easy. The second one was that they didn't do the work and prep. And to watch Brandel Chambly with this stack of yellow legal pads, and to watch Rich Lerner grinding over the essay that he wants to write to honor someone on Live From, and to go into the booth and then voice it before the show, and then to stare into that camera and, with a prompter, look at the prompter, but act as if you're not reading it, and just to show the emotion on your face, and to keep that audience enthralled with every word you say. There was just a lot more to it than I originally thought. I have a lot more respect for the television side of the business. And I think what people at home don't realize is just the chaos that's going on. The director telling you which camera to look at, the producer counting you to a sound package that you have to lead to. Oh, a late highlight came in. Oh, the highlight's different than the shot sheet that you have. Because I only have 4 shots on the shot sheet, but you're telling me there's 6 shots on the shot sheet. You're adding 2 more shots to this highlight that I got to play at home. No one at home realizes the chaos that's going on. And I've spent time in the control room, and it's absolute chaos. Everybody's shouting and yelling. It's embellished a little bit in some of the movies, but it's also, I've seen it up close, and it can be loud in there. It can be cursing in there sometimes. It's chaotic. But at home, you get the call from the friend. Oh, what a great show. You guys are so smooth. You're so good at it. And it's like, man, you have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. So that's probably the biggest thing. Those 2 things was how easy I thought it was until I saw the work that it took to get it and to be good at it. And then also just the behind the scenes chaos that happens. Live TV, things change quickly. A guest doesn't show up. A segment runs longer than you thought. Oh, we're hitting the top of the hour. We got to hit the top of the hour so we can get CNBC on or get Golf Central on. It's a lot to it, and I respect it way more than I did before I started and was looking from the outside.
As the main outlet for golf on TV, Golf Channel, since 2021, 2022, has there been an energy shift in the building with how you, your colleagues, and everyone in that building views Live Golf?
I think for the most part in our building, and I can't even speak for me, but even from some of my colleagues, we never really felt that the product itself was that compelling. Guys in shorts, 3 rounds, shotgun start. For the most part, rosters filled by guys who were kind of at the end of their careers anyway. Lee Westwood, not the same player he was when he was #1 in the world. Bubba Watson, 2-time Masters champ, not playing nearly to that level. Graham McDowell, major champ, Ryder Cup stalwart, not playing that great. Ian Poulter, the same. Phil Mickelson obviously had won a PGA north of 50, but his game had fallen off. It just looked more like this was like a golden parachute, gold watch for guys. The quick cash. Questions about where the cash was coming from, considering Saudi Arabia's human rights record. And got to remember, the posture of the PGA Tour was one of defense and defiance at first. Jay Monahan saying, you never have to apologize for being a member of the PGA Tour, and viewing Live as a threat. So, as a channel that broadcasts PGA Tour golf, we were like kind of, feeling the same way. Some of it was just our own personal preference too. Just didn't think the golf was that good. They got John Rahm, they got Cameron Smith, they got some terrific players, but for the most part, it was rosters filled with guys that were a little long in the tooth anyway. But then secondarily, it was also, well, this is making the PGA Tour weaker. Now you've got a handful of players in one camp and a handful of players in the other camp. And what we were hearing from viewers was that they didn't like the split and the schism in the game. And then, of course, the news of the framework agreement was a shock, because the PGA Tour had been so vocal in wanting to defeat Live and at least, keep those guys from infiltrating and taking more players and doing what they could to try to keep everybody home, raising the purses and getting investment from SSG to make the PGA Tour a more attractive place to play. And then you find out that they're actually doing business and trying to maybe come up with some sort of collaboration where the players are exchanged. Who knows what the future is going to look like, because those negotiations clearly are continuing to stall. But yeah, our initial posture, and mine personally, was just like, I don't think this is very interesting. I watched a few of the early tournaments and just didn't find it as compelling as I would a PGA Tour event. And that was just personal choice.
Yeah.
Well, and also the shotgun format, I feel like doesn't give you that exciting thrill on Sunday afternoon. You're like,
Yeah.
you got, even the people on the course really have no idea what's going on.
Exactly. Harder to follow. Much easier when you've got, Rory McIlroy and Shane Lowry in the final group at Pebble, or Rory battling JJ Spawn down the stretch at the Players Championship.
Hmm.
Hideki with that record-breaking week on Maui to start the season
Yes.
at the
Yes.
Century. I mean, and
So
listen,
good.
those were great watches and great duels and battles. Thomas Dietrich birding his last 4 holes to win in Phoenix, which was an awesome result. Joe Highsmith, Merrick, where we met at Palm
Yep.
Beach, the Cognitive
Yes.
Classic. The guy makes the cut on the number and then goes 64-64 to win for the first time. He's got Joe LaCava's son on the bag. We had a 59 that week by Jake
Yep.
Knapp on Thursday. I mean, that to me, that was awesome. And
That was a
I'm
sneaky good tournament.
sneaky good tournament, exactly. And Spieth was there trying to make it into Bay Hill, and Ricky was there trying to make it into Bay Hill. Neither one able to do so. But you had some cool storylines there. You had some underdogs, you had some veterans, and I just find that much more compelling than the shotgun start with the champagne bottles popping and the shrimp cocktail and the loud noise.
And also, if you go back to the Cognizant, and even a few weeks prior, Russell Henley winning the Arnold Palmer was really inevitable. He was knocking on the door for weeks, if not months, if not years. And for him to get a win of that caliber at, right before the Players, right before the Masters, it was one of those wins that's like, okay, that made sense. You could see the results. He was trending. And for him to do it though at that big boy golf course was no
Yeah.
joke.
Yeah, doesn't hit the ball like Rory and Scotty. He's not a bomber like a John Rahm. He's a great
Hmm.
putter, great iron player. And, at that Cognizant Classic, he was the highest ranked player in the field that week. And he had earned that ranking playing very well over the last year or so. And to be able to bring it to Bay Hill, one of the toughest golf courses they play, typically favors the big hitter, a la Bryson back in the day, a la Rory. And to see him catch and pass Colin Morikawa, chipping in for Eagle. Looked like it was going to be Colin's weekday,
Hmm.
especially on the back nine. He had that 3-shot lead. Then he bogeys the par 3 14th. And here comes Russell birding that hole, and then the Eagle just broke Collins hard. And
Hmm.
neat for Russell, who I think learned a lot from his experience last year at the President's Cup, partnering with Scotty Scheffler. They paired beautifully. I imagine we'll see those two together at Bethpage Black for the United States Ryder Cup team
Hmm.
as well. But that was a wonderful kind of coming out party for Russell, who already won on the PGA Tour, but that by far the biggest win of his career.
Isn't it crazy that we're referring to Bryson at Bay Hills back in the day?
Back in the day, right? I mean, that was kind of the pivot point because to me, that's when he owned the sport. When he was driving the par 5 6th hole, and you talked
Yeah,
about it ahead of time, and he just missed it off to the right. But the fact that he cleared that water on that audacious, aggressive line, and then his celebration, arms in the air,
Yes.
tee box behind him going crazy. He was the Pied Piper, and he kind of carried that energy into Wisconsin at the Ryder Cup as well.
That was
And then he
awesome.
kind of and he then he makes the heel turn, and he looks like his PGA Tour stalwart, and then he goes to live, and he's not beloved anymore. And he has the incident with the rope where he ran in the rope and is blaming people around him, and then he has the hero turn. He kind of goes from Pied Piper to heel to hero again when he wins at the U.S. Open at Pinehurst #2 last year,
hmm,
and he's sharing the love with everybody and literally taking the trophy that he just
yeah,
won this national championship and running around the golf course and letting everybody touch the trophy, and then doing that great job with Johnson Wagner in the bunker recreating the shot that he
very
made up and
cool.
down to beat Rory McIlroy by a single shot. So he was a star of that week, star of the post game and live from. And I think you can make an argument that outside of Tiger, who's just not playing right now, that Bryson is right neck and neck, if and possibly ahead of Rory and Scotty as the most popular player in the game. He's very visible on YouTube, and
Yep.
he's become one of those creators of content. But yeah, from Bay Hill to the Ryder Cup to Live, and back. I mean, he's lived a life, pardon the pun, in just a few short years.
Totally.
Damon, as someone who is so close to the game on so many fronts, what where do you see or any new developments with this Live PGA merger?
Yeah, for a while, for months, the talk was, oh, they're close, they're close. I mean, we're talking a couple Junes ago now, and it's still this impasse. The thought was that the Department of Justice would hold this up for a while, and then Trump gets elected, and the thought is, well, Trump has a relationship with the Saudis, so now, he invites both sides to the White House, and the thought is, oh, wow, this is going to really get done really quick, and still, it's just the thought is there's still too much, I don't know, water under the bridge. Not a clear picture on what the future looks like. The Live side apparently wants to keep team golf a huge part of any merger. Sources tell me that that's just not what the PGA Tour sees. So there's a disconnect on what the future of golf looks like, a disconnect on where the majority of tournaments should be, what's important, who gets in. Does the PGA Tour bring everybody back, or does the PGA Tour only want Bryson and John Rahm back? Like there's so many moving parts. And I've talked to members of the policy board, and off the record, they've told me, Damon, there's just the issue right now is nobody knows what the future looks like. Like, how do you get to the destination when nobody knows what the destination is going to look like? You got strong opinions, you got politics involved now, and you have egos and a lot of money involved. And I think that all of those components ultimately are leading to a bit of a hang up in these negotiations. So not a lot of movement over the last couple of weeks, that's for sure.
Well, and it's interesting because, like you said, there's so many different moving parts and their formats are so different. If it was up to you, how would you want it structured to bring the players back or not bring them back?
Yeah, you know what? I've enjoyed this season so much. Like, I don't think that the tour needs John Rahm necessarily, Brian. I mean, I like what those guys bring as entertainers. Like, if I was a commissioner of the tour, I would be like, hey, look at what we've had so far this season. We've got one of the most popular players in the history of the game in Rory McIlroy. He's already won twice and now going to chase the career Grand Slam at Augusta. We've got young studs like Luke Clanton, who's got
He's
his
looking
PGA
good.
Tour card. Another great story, Merrick, I forgot at Cognizant. We had this
Yeah.
kid from Florida State earn his PGA Tour card through PGA Tour University Accelerated. You have Nick Dunlap winning the Amex last year as an amateur and turning pro. You've got international stars and Ludwig Oberg winning for the second time on tour in San Diego at the Genesis. Hideki, a transcendent star from Japan who's got as many reporters following him week to week as Tiger Woods had back in the day. I would, if I was in charge, I would just remind my PGA Tour brethren, we're in a position of strength. Where it looked like Liv was going to steal everybody, that has stopped. You're the top dog. You're still the gold standard when it comes to professional golf. If you feel like a Bryson or a John Rahm would significantly increase viewership, if you want a couple of, antagonist personalities, then maybe you think we need Patrick Reed. We need a Bryson to go up against Rory more than once a year. If there's significant evidence that that's going to make your tour better, fine. But you got a guy in Scotty who won 9 times around the world last year. Got Xander Schauffele, super cool, smoking his cigars at the Ryder Cup, winning 2 majors last year. Ride with the guys who've been loyal. The viewership is up. The ratings are up this year after a couple of down years. And you got 35-year-old Rory McIlroy, who's clearly showing signs of being height of power once again. I would say, hey, you got to come to us with something that's compelling. If talking to Liv, what can you do? Because right now we're cruising and we've got greatness in our midst.
One, you make a great point with Luke Canton. In any sport, it's like the next man up mentality. The greats go away, and you get to see these young guys shine and make a name for themselves.
It's so true. I mean, who would have thought that, following Brett Favre, that you get an Aaron Rodgers, and after Aaron Rodgers, you got Jordan Love. Jordan Love, I have 3 boys. One of my boys is a Packer fan. Got Jordan Love's picture on his phone. That's his That's his wallpaper, or that Joe Montana would lead to Steve Young, and then you get Jeff Garcia, and now you got Brock Purdy, then you had Jerry Rice, then you had Terrell Owens, and then you had Debo, though Debo's gone now. But yeah, that's the point there. Tom Brady, well, hey, now you got, let's see what this kid can do. Drake May. I mean, you've got to, there's always got to be that next man mentality. And I think the tour did a smart thing with this PJ Tour University, because whether it's Gordon Sargent at Vandy, Luke Clanton at FSU, Ludwig Oberg, you've seen the pathway be successful. Michael Thorbjornsen, Stanford.
Yep. Yes.
These college kids are coming up. They're ready to play. It kind of gives them a point system of their own, which is kind of similar to what the FedEx Cup is, just in terms of how do I accumulate points, experience. And man, these kids are coming up and they're ready to perform.
Damon, as a father of 3 young boys and also a husband, you're traveling quite a bit. How do you manage all of the travel as a father and husband?
Yeah, I was so fortunate to have my boys and wife with me in Mexico for the Mexico Open.
Nice.
Coincided with the boys' winter break.
Oh, nice.
I hate being away from them. I'm lucky that I love my job. I think that probably comes clear today. And also when I'm on the air, I love what I do. It's tough leaving the family and going to the airport, but at least I know that I'm doing something fulfilling. I'm doing something that's going to help pay for my kids' college one day and allow us to take a nice vacation, to have that family bonding time when I am at home. Like when I'm not on the road or in studio, I'm just driving my boys to school as I did this morning, or I'm driving my wife to breakfast, or I'm doing, laundry, or I'm picking up dog food for our pup. I mean, all of those things. At the end of the day, I'm just a dad and a husband. I love traveling. I love traveling, just seeing other cities, learning golf courses. I love going to the Open Championship. I've been able to take my family to the Scottish Open one year, to the Open Championship one year at Royal Portrush. So where I can and when the schedules allow, I will take my family and bring them with me. But what I try to do is be present. And so I have triplets, and my wife and I've just started, they're 13.
Wait, your kids are triplets?
We have triplets, yeah, 1 minute
That's
apart. So
amazing.
it's not just 3 boys, but it's 3, yeah, 1 minute apart. So, and they love sports, as you can imagine, because that's what they've seen, just like I did growing up. And so my wife and I have decided this year, one of us, either me or her, is going to take one child on like a dream trip. And I'm going to take one of my boys, if I can somehow secure tickets to a Laker game, because he's a Laker fan, LeBron fan, I'm a Laker fan. So I'm going to take one of my boys to a Laker playoff game. My wife's going to take one of my boys to a tennis tournament, possibly the Madrid Open, which is a Masters 1000 ATP event, to hopefully watch Carlos Alcaraz, who typically performs very well. And Carlos is one of my boys' favorite players. And then also, my wife already took one of my boys to a tournament to compete in himself in Puerto Rico, which was terrific. My wife just said, what an incredible bonding time that they had one-on-one. Because we love the traveling circus when it's all 5 of us, but we also want that one-on-one father, son, mother, son time as well. And then there are also times where my wife and I will sneak away and let a neighbor, let the boys' friends watch them for a couple of days, because that's important too, having the husband-wife time. But it's all we know. Like people with 1 kid or 2 kids, or kids like more traditionally spread apart every few years. Like, how did you do this one or all at once? We're like, hey, it's all we knew. It's all we know. It's just normal for us.
That's awesome. We're 3 boys too. I'm a little older. I'm 15 months older, and Evan has a twin. So Ethan and Evan, there's 3 of us. Yep. Yes.
So you guys are close. That's close though. Also,
yeah. We've been presumed to be triplets many times.
Yeah, I believe it. And I tell you, I mean, I don't have to tell you guys, like, and listen, my boys will argue and tackle each other and also like, want to beat each other, especially in the basketball court and the tennis court. But the love of of a multiple or siblings of the same or similar age, it's just beautiful. Like my boys, like if some stranger wanted to mess with them, like the other brothers would step in. It's like, it's beautiful to see that love for, and I've got siblings, but more traditionally all spread apart. But to see like, you've been together basically every second of your life, it's like, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, no doubt. And we're very close. Thank God.
Love it.
So,
Love it.
David, what are some lessons that you now share with your three boys?
Yeah, hard work, the same things that were taught to me. They want to play college tennis, and I've told them, and my wife has, like, we're gonna like do what we can, give you the lessons and take you to different tennis tournaments that you can play, that you can watch, private lessons, clinics. But you got to do the extra. You got to do the extra work. First of all, you got to keep your grades up. Grades were always a huge part of
Hmm.
my upbringing. Grades are a big part of theirs. Being a good person, being humble, being a helper, take out the trash, do the dishes, make up your bed, do the laundry, just the basic fundamentals. It's no, magic secret. It's about how you treat people. It's about having pride in your work. I try to show the boys, like, whether I'm waking up and if they tease me because we have a little gym in our house, and they'll hear me like grunting, and they think I'm like showing off or like trying to like I'm like, dude, I'm old, like this is hard work. I'm like, I'm not grunting to show off, I'm grunting because this hurts. But like, I want them to see me with weights, or see me
Yeah,
with my notes being prepared. It all centers around hard work and being a good person. And I think if you have those fundamentals, you'll go far in life, and people will want to be around you, people will want to help you, people will want to hire you. If you're a good human being, if you're a hard worker, those are two wonderful first steps to have as you head out into life.
Lead
wonderful.
by example.
Yes,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
So, Damon, a testament to your hard work as a journalist was, I believe, in 2002, your first time playing Augusta National. Is that correct?
Correct.
So
Wow. Yes.
you found yourself on the grounds of Augusta a few years into journalism. What was that experience like, and how has the course changed since then?
It was unbelievable. So the Masters tournament holds a lottery every year for sports writers and members of the media, and then like a select group, maybe 30, 32 out of a couple hundred, I would imagine. They pull these little green cards out of a bin. No one sees this happen. This all happens out of sight. And then they post the names of the people. And my name, my first year covering the Masters, 2002, my name was pulled, and I was just in utter disbelief. Most sports writers bring their golf clubs anyway to golf tournaments, just in case the golf course is available after the tournament, or there's some golf courses usually around where the tournament's being held. So I had my golf clubs with me, didn't sleep that much on Sunday night, as I knew I was going to play on Monday. Shot a miserable 112, but it felt like I shot 68 because I was just floating around there. Part 16, which is very cool.
Awesome.
Um, I've parred 12, I've parred 16. I played it twice, '02 and '09. I parred 16 both times. Parred 12 and '02. I think I made like an 8 in 2009, which was a bummer. But it's one of those places where you don't care what you shoot. You're so appreciative that you're on the grounds. They treat you like a member for the day. They really want you to enjoy the experience. You have breakfast in the clubhouse.
Mm.
You have your own locker in the champions locker room, and
How
it's just
special.
you're warming up on the same tournament practice area where the players do. Take out caddies, and you go, and you just want the day to never end. Everybody walks slow,
Yeah.
and you can imagine how special it is, because these are holes you've watched your entire life. You've watched on TV. Oh, this is where Tiger chipped in on 16. This is where, Phil made his putt to beat Ernie Els in 2004. So this is where Jack started his charge to shoot 30 on the back nine in 1986. So you just see all these incredible spots, and these moments are kind of buzzing around your brain as you make your way around that beautiful golf course.
That's so special. What are some storylines that we should keep our eyes out on this 89th Masters coming up?
Oh, so exciting. I think the fact that you've had Rory McIlroy off to such a hot start and seeking the career Grand Slam, you can make an argument he's never come into this tournament in as great a form as he
Yep.
has this year. I think that's one huge storyline. And then also kind of waiting for Scotty and Xander. Like, okay, you guys owned 2024, both of you injured at the start of 2025, not having the start of the season that you wanted. I think styles make fights. I think a little tension at the top of the official world golf ranking is good. As great as Scotty is, want to see him pushed, want to see him tested. Tiger was transcendent, the red shirt, but he was also awesome to see. There was great players like Phil and David Duval push him, Vijay Singh, Jim Furyk, Ernie Els, Retief Goosen, but also to see the underdog, the less heralded Rocco Mediate and Bob May push Tiger Woods. So in a similar way, I think, not having a transcendent athlete at the top of the game right now, let's have Rory and Xander and Scotty kind of duking it out, maybe setting the table, a little precursor for the Ryder Cup this fall. That would be really, really fun to see happening at Augusta National.
For sure.
Well,
and what was that? What was your thoughts on Phil's take that Scotty doesn't win again before the Ryder Cup?
That sound like a little Stephen A. Smith kind of throwing some hot take out there for the people. I think Scotty's too talented. I think he might be pressing a little bit, but I think that's heresy. And we'll see what happens at the end of 2025. But to think that a guy that won 9 times last year is going to win 0 times this year, I think he's too good. Doesn't have to play perfect golf. Can you have someone else stumble at the end? He's going to put himself there. His iron play is too good. The putter just has to heat up. Been a little bit wayward off the tee compared to his height of power years of 23 and 24. But I would expect Scotty Scheffler to end this season with more than 1 win. We'll see what happens. See if Phil was right or if I was right.
Well, and speaking of Tiger Woods, it seems almost impossible he plays the Masters this week. But what are your thoughts on if he's going to play at all this year?
Yeah, it's always, we're conditioned to say this guy, you can never count him out, especially after the 2019 Masters. I have 2 trains of thought. One is that his former caddy, Steve Williams, said, you count him out at your peril. You might think he's done, even with this latest Achilles issue. All Tiger knows how to do is work. He trains, he hits balls, he works hard, and that's not going to change. He wants to play the PGA Tour champions, the former senior tour, wants to win a U.S. Senior Open, exempt into the Masters, for as long as he wants to play, typically age 65 or so, similar with the Open Championship. Those are 2 types of tests of golf that he can get around with his brain almost as much as his body. He was in terrific shape, I would say, before this latest accident. The thought was that guys he was playing with said his swing looks good. He's hitting the ball like a long way, still has the swing speed. And then to hear a former caddy who doesn't even work for him anymore say, hey, don't count that dude out. And I'm conditioned because I covered him height of power to not count him out. I think it's hard to think he's ever going to be a consistent contender again. But I do think, almost like that old football analogy, on any given Sunday, Tiger's muscle memory, his unique hunger and greatness, he's the greatest to ever do it, at least the greatest in this generation. You can argue Hogan, you can argue Bobby Jones or Jack Nicklaus, that's fine. But most experts say that nobody has ever played golf better in terms of the highest level, getting as close to the sun as Tiger Woods has. So because of that, because of how he's built, if he was an NFL player, he'd be a Brian Urlacher. He's got a high motor like a Von Miller. I'm never counting out Tiger until he says I'm done. If he believes he has a chance, if it's a 5% chance, I think I could see someone on a Sun as they did at the Masters in 19 when those guys faded away, when Koepka and Finau and Molinari, all of a sudden started finding Augusta National pools of water, and Tiger found a 15th major championship.
You've spent more time around Tiger Woods than most. What are some key characteristics of his?
Yeah, I have. I've covered him for a long time. Great sense of humor, first of all, kind of like still like a college sophomore in a lot of ways. I think part of that's because he grew up so fast and like people knew who he was, and he left college early. So I still think he kind of craves and misses that juvenile sense of humor, but also someone who really values education. I covered one of his junior golf tournaments, and I was the host and MC, first tee announcer for those young kids who were playing. And I got to talk to Tiger off to the side and just a reminder of how much he values education, and all of his junior programs are tied to his Tiger Woods Foundation. And it's not about creating great golfers, it's about creating great people, especially in Southern California, opening another Tiger Woods learning center in Philadelphia. It's all centered around like STEAM education, which is the science, technology, engineering,
Yes.
art, and math. So he was a good student, man. He went to Stanford. He was always getting A's in high school. So that too. And then obviously the competitor loves to work out, loves to lift, doesn't need as much sleep as everybody else. He's just one of those,
Mm.
like John Gruden was a great football coach who slept 4 hours a night. Just some people have that kind of constitution. I think Tiger's one of those people who wakes up every day early thinking about, okay, how do I get better today? Someone who's always going to seek perfection. I don't think that's ever going to change. And guys like Nicklaus and Arnold Palmer always believed that there was a great day of golf ahead of them, a tournament, a rabbit they could pull out of the hat even late in life. I think Tiger is built in a very, very similar mold.
Too cool. Hopefully we see him back out there soon, competing
Mhm.
at the highest
Yes.
level. And, I want to jump back to the Masters as we talk about competing at the highest level. Who do you envision wearing the green jacket by the end of this week?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. Um, you know, I think Colin Morikawa is a very dangerous player.
That's our
I
pick.
just, thank you, thank you. Yeah. I just think he's been there before. He was in the hunt last year. He and Homa fell short to Scotty. Ludwig Oberg was there, runner up, very, very close in his first Master. So Ludwig, someone I would probably put up there on that page as well. Rory, gosh, the sentiment would be strong for him, but something about Morikawa, I
He's
think he
trending
bounces
too.
back. Yeah, yeah. It's just that's what's so great about this tournament. You can say you have 5 guys, 10 guys that have a chance, but I think Morikawa's iron play. There's some strokes gained tee to green stat that kind of predicts how these guys are going to
Yep,
do at
I saw
Augusta
that.
specifically. Yeah, so you know what I'm talking about, Ev. So
Yep.
it's like, okay, I think Colin was on the list, maybe on top of the list. So
Mhm.
he's a 2-time major champ. He's got the chip on the shoulder after what happened to him at Bay Hill. He's got the head down, blinders on. Didn't love him not talking to the media afterwards at Bay Hill. He's kind of said, I don't owe you guys anything. But I think he's got the burr. I think he's got the bit of the red, the red
Mhm.
ass, if I can say, and
Yes.
wants to make things right at Augusta here. So I think Colin Morikawa would be my pick.
And Damon, not to mention, you couldn't tell by just looking at a leaderboard, but if Colin putted just average at the players, he would have been right there,
Yeah,
potentially holding the trophy. So it's all a matter, in my opinion, of the short stick, right? If he could
yeah,
just make some putts, especially putts within 12 feet,
yes.
his iron play is too good, his driver's too good. I do. Evan and I both. That's our Masters pick, Colin
Awesome.
Morikawa.
Great minds
Yeah.
think alike, and it'd be a cool redemptive story. I mean, short of a Jordan Spieth resurrection, Rory McIlroy, Scotty.
Mhm.
I think Morikawa, just in terms of the sports, the quick turnaround from March to April in winning, the Masters would be his
Yeah.
third major, and then he actually would have a chance to complete the career Grand Slam at the U.S. Open because he already has an Open, he already has a PGA. So should Colin win the green jacket, all eyes would be on him at Oakmont to try to
Yeah.
complete the career
I
Grand Slam.
I think it's hard to. I don't think there's a better story than Rory winning,
Yeah.
but I mean it's been like a decade,
Yeah.
over a decade since his last major. This first major always, there's always the conversation. Rory, is it his time? Is it his time? He
Yeah.
came close that year. Him and Colin both hold out of the bunker in 18,
So cool.
Mhm.
but we'll see. He's trending. He got to think in this phase of his personal life, he's the most ready he's ever been.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see come
Mhm.
Sunday. Another man that played well there last year. His game's also trending in a sneaky good direction. No one seems to be talking about him. He's yet to finish. Tommy Fleetwood is
Yeah.
right there knocking on the door. He finished tied third last year, but has not won on American soil. What are your thoughts on him and any other sleepers going into this week?
Tommy's a good one. He's got 8 wins on the DP World Tour, and he's been close in the U.S. Open, close at the Players Championship. I do think there's a mental hurdle for some of the Europeans to win over here. Obviously, you've got some guys that have been able to do it. Francesco Molinari won a major and also won on the PGA Tour. Shane Lowry won a major, also won the Open like Francesco. Was also won on the PGA Tour and came close at Pebble as well. He won Zurich with Rory last year. I'm going to say Shane Lowry would be someone to watch also.
Mhm.
He's
Agreed.
just he's a big man with soft hands. He's got the great wedge game. Has the hole out aces at like the 16th at Augusta, the 17 at
Yeah.
TPC Sawgrass, 7 at Pebble. I want to say also. Is that right? I want to
I believe
say,
so. I
yeah.
believe.
That's some
I
special
mean, it's like
stuff.
he's got this incredible group
Luck of
of
the Irish.
right. He's got it, and he's also got a ton of game, and he's a major champ
Yeah.
also. Wouldn't that be
Correct.
crazy if in the year of Rory, Shane Lowry, who got pipped by Rory at Pebble, pips his pal at Augusta in the first major and keeps his one of his best friends in life in Rory
Yes.
from completing the career Grand Slam. But that
Mm.
would be an incredible story. But Fleetwood's a good one. Europeans are playing well, man.
Yeah.
You know, Sepp Straka's won, Thomas Dietrich's won, Rory's won a couple of times. Shane
On the
Lowry,
American front though, JT is playing some good golf. He just hasn't been
he is.
able to finish.
He's so gosh, he was so close
Yeah.
to winning at Valspar.
And
Victor Hovland,
Hovland came
another
back. Yeah.
European who's played well at Augusta. So my favorite years covering the Masters were when Tiger was playing well, Phil playing well, VJ playing well. Like when the big dogs were all playing well. Now we're waiting for Scotty and Xander, but they're sniffing at it. It's not going to be long. So I
Mhm.
think that this is one of those compelling Masters tournaments with a plethora of storylines, and that's what we love to see.
And what do you
That's it.
think the live guys do this week?
Yeah, I don't see a live guy winning. I
Uh-huh.
don't. I think that over the long haul, those guys competitively don't
Yep.
have the
Yep.
sharpness, don't have the traditional run up to the Masters. You know, I could be wrong. Joaquin Neiman seems to be the one playing
Yes.
the best. Sergio's been showing some signs. Has already won the green
Sneaky.
jacket before.
Yeah.
Brooks is a major championship whisperer, as we know. Phil,
Yeah.
one of the top 10, 15 golfers of all time, can always find it, especially with 3 green jackets. But I don't think a live golfer wins. I feel like they're just not as competitively sharp. I think too many guys coming from the PGA Tour are competitive, hungry, and ready to get it done.
Awesome. All
Mhm.
right, well, we will see. Time will tell, as they say. Damon, before we officially wrap this up, I want to top this off with rapid fire questions for you.
All right.
Let's do it.
Okay. This is Evan and I have had this conversation since last summer. I'm going to ask you, would you rather have a gold medal or a green jacket?
Oh, gosh. Wow. Tough. Ah. I'd probably, I mean, I'm in the golf business for so long. I love the Olympics. I love the Olympics, and I've covered the Olympics in media,
Mhm.
TV, and in print. Oh, what a tough one. I mean, I think I'd probably say a green jacket. I think I'd probably say a green jacket.
I'm with you. Evan is not with you, however.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd be happy with either one, as I'm sure all of
Yeah.
you would.
Too funny. Travel anywhere in the world.
Gosh, I've been fortunate to travel a lot of places. Um, I'm going to say, I'm going to say the Maldives because my wife wants to go to the
Mm,
Maldives.
all
Yeah,
right.
just to get some of
Very
that
cool.
blue-green water.
What is your favorite thing about Augusta National?
My favorite thing about Augusta National, it's the golf course.
Yep,
It's
fair.
being out there late in the Tuesday or Wednesday when the patrons are starting to leave and the sun's going down. It's just like a lovely, hilly, bucolic emerald paradise. And just as a golfer, um, it never gets old. It
Mm,
never gets old. You want to walk around and see people who are going there for the first time just to look at their eyes and how excited they are. It is a special kind of unique, beautiful paradise there.
yes.
Well said.
Who is your favorite journalist, dead or alive, that you admire the most?
Favorite journalist, dead or alive? Hmm. I grew up. I'd probably say Vince Scully. He's a broadcaster because it's childhood memories with my dad who'd take me to Dodger games, and listening to the radio baseball game was like the soundtrack of my childhood in the car with my dad or at home or going to Dodger Stadium. You could hear like Vince Scully because everybody had like a transistor radio or a mini boombox back in the day. Never met Vince Scully. Um, just thought his voice meant baseball. And he's the one. He's the guy.
Love it. Favorite podcast?
Favorite podcast, Everything But Politics. And tied for this one is the tennis podcast, which
Okay.
is three Brits who break down the ATP tour
Nice.
and the major championships. They're funny. I guess the way they would say it, they're cheeky. So I like the tennis podcast quite a bit. Listen to it all the time.
Love it. Favorite meat?
Favorite meat? I would probably say sushi. I'd say
Ooh.
I'm a big salmon and tuna guy, tuna poke bowl guy. So I'm gonna say fish. Yeah.
Okay. Last question, Damon. What is your favorite thing about being Damon Hack?
Oh, being a dad and husband. I mean, like my family. It's so unique. It's so chaotic, but it's us, and it's such a blessing. Like it makes the trips worth it when I come home and my boys are still giving me hugs uh and planning on trips with my wife, and saying, "Hey boys, I just met Sauce Gardner." And they're like, "Oh man, that's so cool." So that kind of stuff is just yeah, listen, the job is great, but being a dad and a husband has been the biggest blessing and greatest thing I've ever done. And that's what puts the biggest smile on my face more than any sporting event I've covered or any cool assignment I've had, without question.
Love
Amazing. Yeah.
love the genuine answer there. Appreciate that the beautiful response. Damon, it was great to meet you a couple weeks back in Palm Beach.
Yeah.
Happy we were able to do
Pleasure.
this and build this, amazing podcast, this relationship. And before we wrap up, where can our listeners find you in all you're working on?
Yeah, I'm typically on Golf Today when I'm in studio on Golf Channel. Also, doing live from the Masters. I'm going to be along the first fairway. So if you're coming to
Awesome.
Augusta, wave, I'll be there. And then also on social media, I'm just at Damon Hack, and love doing what I do and having golf fans that have been watching me for a while come up and say hi, as you did at Palm Beach, introducing yourself, and now here we are doing this. So fortunate and blessed to do what I do, and keep tuning in. We appreciate folks watching.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Damon. Appreciate you, brother.
Merrick and Evan, this
Yeah.
was fun. Thank you so
A lot
much.
of fun. Thanks, everyone.